Well, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the American Fork City Council meeting on this February 13th of 2018.
I mean, tomorrow's Valentine's Day.
It does. For Councilman Barnes' sake, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and for all others of us. So, but we're glad to have you here, and we have an agenda that if you don't have one, if you'd like one, there's one posted it's on the table there in the middle of the room, and it's been conspicuously posted throughout the city and on state websites, and we will follow the agenda as outlined. So we will first have a Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead you in, and then we will have a prayer by Councilman Rob Shelton, after which I will conduct the roll call. If we all please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity that we have to gather together as a community and as a city council to be able to conduct the business that's been entrusted to us by the residents of this amazing city. We're thankful, Father, for the blessings of freedom, for the right to be able to assemble and to be able to make decisions by committee and to be able to share in resources as a community. We're thankful, Father, for Thy Spirit, and ask that it will attend the meeting this evening. We ask a blessing upon this meeting that we may be able to focus on the needs of those that are presenting this evening and be able to use wise judgment. And these things we ask and pray for in Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I now will conduct the roll call. Council Member Christiansen.
Here.
Councilmember Shelton. Here. Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum and can conduct the business of the city. Excuse me. You scouts, I'd like to have you stand if you might. Those that are here for merit badge purposes. We appreciate you being here. We're hoping that you have signed in the middle of the room. If you haven't, we would have you do that on your way out or when you have time. But we appreciate you being here. We wish you well as you continue on your path to obtain the rank of Eagle. And when you get to that point, the burden and that decision to be made for an Eagle is really upon you. And sometimes we get the idea that somebody else is going to make that decision, but we would ask you to look around your community, your neighborhood, or wherever it might be, and if you come up with an idea, and if there's something the city can do to help you, you can reach out to the city, but we wish you well on your path to obtain that Eagle rank. So thank you very much. You can please be seated. I'm going to ask the leaders to stand as well. And I do this for the purpose of the boys, because when I was your age, I may have not have noticed the good men and women that were there to support me throughout my life. And as I reflect now, I can think of many, many people who spent nights with me, such as tonight, that spent weeks with me at scout camp, that helped me along the scouting path, whether that be a good woman or a good man. And to you scouts here tonight, I'm going to issue a challenge that you might reach out to them and thank them in a very special way for their time commitment to help you along your life, because it's very important. We thank you guys. So thank you very much. We will now go to the second item on our agenda, which is a 20-minute public comment period. We would have anybody that would like to address the city council, the senior staff, to come forward at the mic. If you could, please keep your comments brief, but we would like to hear from you. And you could come forward at this time. Seeing none, we will move on to the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Just a couple of things right off the bat. I just want to thank the Mayor and Council for the time and effort that you guys have given to the budget workshop process. For the audience, last week the Mayor and Council spent a lot of hours meeting with staff and collaborating on the upcoming budget. There's a lot of work that goes into that to make sure that we do things right and that we're very careful with the funds of the city. And just want to thank you for your input, and we had a great time together and accomplished a lot of work, so thank you. Also want to give a shout out to the American Fork Women's Swim Team. They were the state 6A swim champions, and so they're amazing. The women cavemen are really on fire, with the basketball program, the swim team. The men's did great as well. They took fourth, and so that is an achievement as well, and they should be congratulated for that too. Our fire department recently has been doing some ice rescue training, and they were able to find a patch of ice to go train on. It's rare nowadays, but they did find a patch. And we used to have 4 of our fire department members trained in ice rescue, and now we have all 27 full-time firemen trained in ice rescue, which is a great thing. So no matter what patrol, what platoon is on duty, there will be ice rescue people available. So congratulations to them. That's all I have.
Thank you. We will say they had to travel up American Fork Canyon to find that piece of ice, but it was there. And it might not be there today, but it was there then. So thanks, Chief. All right, we will now move on to council reports. I'm going to start with to my left here with Council Member Christiansen.
The meeting that I attended this last week, in fact, it was just yesterday, the Timpanogos Arts Foundation, and it was kind of the yearly board meeting, and we decided we'd like more board members. So if you know people who are interested in the arts and in any of the areas of the arts, we're open to council or public to turn in some applications or make some suggestions.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Councilman Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. Had the opportunity this last week to attend the dispatch meeting. We're getting ready to do our budget. Preliminary numbers, I hesitate to even mention it, show us down about 10,000 in savings, but that's them doing a 3-year estimate on our call volume. So I'd hate to say that we bank on that. I think we budget the same we have before. If we realize those savings, that'd be great. But they're just in the process of that. So they're on the same budget cycle that we are on as a city. So good news is we don't see any increases coming. And hopefully as we start to see some savings in that, we can start to fund some capital projects, as a new fire tower is one that I'll be lobbying pretty hard for here on the north end of the county. Also had the opportunity to attend the solid waste board meeting. Looking forward to some good cost savings coming up with that one. We are going to shift the collection, we ship the garbage to Bayview, which is on the south end of the county, versus shipping it up to Salt Lake, and that will save us a good substantial amount of money. The downside is the cost of transportation keeps going up, so we're maybe at a break even there, but we'll see how that lands out the rest of this year. I also had the opportunity to attend the Neighborhood Preservation Committee meeting. Some great comments. Really appreciated the police department educating me a little bit on how that committee works and functions, as it's a new assignment for me. And then I wasn't able to attend the beautification committee. I was made aware of it as I was getting on a plane to go out of town for business, but I'll be there for this next month. One of the committees I attended started asking about the need for a budget, and I just gave them my one council member one off as we're looking at a budget season. I thought I'd just mention it here. I said, can you provide me a business plan with that? You feel a need for money, but can you show me how that's going to be used? And I think that's a good policy as we look to our committees and entering budget season, just asking them, okay, show me how you're going to spend that. And the funny thing is we spent, I don't know how much time it was, maybe 20 minutes, and we came to the conclusion there really wasn't a need for a budget. So hopefully something we can look at going forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shelton. Councilman Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good night to be here. Good things are happening in the city, and it's a fun place to be right now, in my opinion. Parks and Recreation met about 2 weeks ago, which was, seems like it's been forever, but it was a while ago. That committee is functioning. They're doing a great job. Kind of reviewed a little bit of where we are with projects for park tax money. This is stuff that we've been discussing in council meetings and stuff, but the committee has been doing their part on it, discussed where we are, how far along on this year's projects and what needs to be finished. It was a good discussion, and just started a real preliminary heads up. We got to start looking at next year kind of a concept, and that's a good committee. They've had some changes. We have some really good people on there, and we have some good representation from all around the city, which I think really helps, so that any given part of the city doesn't get left out of what's happening with our parks and recreation. And the other thing, David, I'd like to turn that around and thank you and the staff. That meeting went really well. I don't know if that's one meeting that lasted 3 days or 3 meetings on 3 different days. But they were not boring. Time did not drag, and staff was very well prepared. And in my humble opinion, as a member of the council, they're doing their jobs, and they gave us the information that we need to do our jobs and make some of the decisions that need to be made, and help put emphasis where emphasis needs to be, and all that good stuff. So just want to publicly thank the entire staff, but in particular at this time, the staff leadership that we have, the department heads and so forth. A couple of us have talked tonight. Things are going well in this city, and there's an old saying about having the right people in the right bus, and we really do have the right people in the right seats in the right bus. We not only got them in the right bus, which is our bus, the city's, but we're getting them in the right seats, and there's just a good feeling of cohesiveness. I think some walls have come down. From my point of view, there's a lot less turf protection. I think there's some valid reasons for why the turf protection was there before. I think it was a culture that was somewhat created and fed, but those walls are coming down, and if I may just use my acronym again, the word team for you scouts. How do you spell team? T-E-A-M, right? So if you put T-E-A-M, and it stands for together, everyone achieves more. I think those are called acronyms. Is that right? That's a great acronym for you guys in your scout work. If you work together as a team, which is either your patrol or your troop, you will achieve more. And that is being demonstrated daily by the city staff. And so I just want to make sure that goes on the official public record, and all those that are here hear it, as well as those that are watching on TV. And hopefully there are a lot more watching on TV than there are here tonight. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Barnes. Councilmember Carroll.
I think the only thing I have to report is that the Chamber of Commerce had their installation banquet, or I don't know, their installation meeting, where they swore in their new president and their new board, and they also honored some of the businesses in our community, as well as a gentleman who, I mean, how would you say it? He helped the police in an altercation that had happened, and he was just a citizen that was there standing by, and he was there and sacrificed himself with no thought of himself to help the people that were there. So, and I think that's it.
Councilmember Tater?
Thank you, Mayor. I can't imagine why anyone at home wouldn't be watching this, just glued and riveted. I mean, yeah, sure, there's things like the Olympics on, but this is council meeting. So, a couple of things. Staff, thumbs up. You know how I feel about you and the great work that took place this past week. Great job. Thank you. For those of you who are interested, this past week, we met as a park committee, Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Culture, and set the time as a week from tomorrow for the mandatory application meeting. So those who would like to apply for those park funds, which happens each year at this time, there is a mandatory meeting in the administration building across the street at 7 p.m. on February 21st, Wednesday, February 21st. That is a mandatory meeting because that is where all of the information is disseminated for the requirements, what would be needed to apply for those funds so that the time can be efficiently used and everyone can understand. There is a lot of rules and different things that those go towards, and each year we have people apply that don't qualify, but if anyone has any interest at all for applying for those funds, next Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the administration building, you will need to be there to participate in that meeting. And that is all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. You know, I think I'm okay with just some repetition, and that is my sincere appreciation to our staff. Again, we spent a great deal of time, and I think that we all have come to the understanding that the greatest thing that we do is prepare our budget. And when we prepare that budget, it sets the priorities for the coming year. And we listened to the survey, and the survey told us roads were very important to our citizens, and we will act accordingly. That amongst other things, water, to name a few. But it was very, very productive. We had fun. There was a spirit of camaraderie. There was no contention. It was there was good discussion, debate, but it was respectful with decorum, and I was just really pleased to be a part of that. And I think that's was a good way and a good model of how government should work. And we don't typically see that in other places in the world, but we did see that in American Fork. A couple other things I would report on is I was privileged to attend this chamber event as well, this luncheon where they sworn in new officers, and I was asked to give an award, and that would be my choice of the Business of the Year, the Mayor's Award. And it's been about a 3-year thing, and I wanted to see who was the other 3, so I didn't repeat it. And it was easy for me after I saw who I thought would be the Business of the Year, and I chose Bank of American Fork. And I've even just this week, I went to a high school basketball game, and guess I see a banner of Bank of American Fork. Last night, I attended the symphony with my daughter and had a wonderful time. They played Looney Tunes. I think I could have listened to them all night. They had Bugs Bunny on stage, and it was very, very entertaining. But Bank of American Fork was, again, true to their fashion, was there to take they were taking donations, and Bank of American Fork was going to match them dollar for dollar up to $5,000. So I appreciate the Bank of American Fork and all the other businesses that were recognized in that banquet, but it was great to be a part of it, and we have a great thriving business community that I can again say that I think that they're getting closer. the city is forming a greater relationship with the chamber, and we're seeing wins all over the place. So that's the mayor's report. We'll now move on to the common consent agenda. And before I go through that, I just want to make the audience aware, and all the listening audience outside of this, that so that you're aware that the city council receives packets well in advance of this meeting. And they are posted online. And so we have this material in front of us that we're going to review tonight, and that we have the ability to go to staff and ask questions as needed, and we'll discuss it here if things arise. But I think it's always important, because sometimes we make quick decisions, but you got to understand that this is material that we have studied, and we've come to a knowledge of what it is. And so we have 5 items on the common consent agenda. I'm not going to read them. I'm going to ask you just to read. Is there anybody that would have comment or need to change or anything on those 5 items?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the common consent agenda.
Go ahead.
There was one correction to the January 23rd meeting. It's just a spelling error, just so you know.
Did Kevin catch that one?
No?
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and accept it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilman Shelton and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion to approve the common consent agenda?
I have a couple of comments. I did catch some other things, and I've already spoken with Terry Lynn about them. If you'll go to the end of the first one, improvements, durability, I've not seen a page number on mine. Packet, page 4. The line says past this 13th day of February 2017. I'm still putting 17 on my checks, but I think in the official records of the city, we need to put an 18 there. And I think we have a new sheriff, or a new mayor, I should say, in town, and we need to change his name. And I spoke with Terry Lynn, and these have all been pretty well corrected. And Sherilyn, excuse me, can't say your name, picked those up in some of the other documents. There are several places where a name is wrong or a date is wrong, and they're usually those 2 situations. They're not a big deal, but just for the official record down the road, we need to get them corrected. And I think everybody's aware of that needs to be.
Okay.
I think we should also make note that Kevin should stop writing checks in 2000.
I've got to, because last one I wrote bounce, so I'm out of money. Still got checks.
Okay. So, are we okay with this motion in a second? Okay. Thank you for that comment, for those corrections, and they're duly noted, and we'll make those corrections. So I will take a roll call vote on the common consent agenda. Council member
I'm
Christiansen.
sorry, question, Mayor. Are we voting on the common consent agenda with the corrections? Okay.
And I think, and maybe this is just a point of information, the errors don't really matter, because we're just making the approval, and that's more of an administrative staff issue, is how they officially sign off on that. So we don't need to make any changes on the dates. It'd just be the change on the minutes, is the spelling error, I think, is the only thing we need to change.
Okay. Council member Christiansen.
Aye.
Council member Shelton.
Aye.
Council member Barnes.
Aye.
Council member Carroll.
Aye.
Council member Taylor. Thank you. Common consent agenda passes. Action item number 1, ratification of city payments from January 16th, 2018 to February 6, 2018, and approval of purchase requests over $25,000. Any questions on the payment for the city bills?
Mayor, I move approval of the city payments from January 16th to February 6th, 2018, and purchase requests over $25,000.
Thanks for that motion, Councilman Taylor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor. Thank you. Voting is unanimous to pay the city bills. Action item number 2. As Council Member Taylor alluded, that we have a Park Tax Advisory Committee. And periodically, the City Council is asked to approve and appoint citizens to these various committees. And it would just so be that actually the 2 of the 3 that we're going to appoint tonight are sitting right here to the left of me, because they were on that committee and now they're sitting in a different chair. And the other appointment is actually a reappointment. So names to be considered and I'd ask for ratification are Laurel Shelley to be reappointed to the term that ends December 20th, or December 2020. Karen Shack, term ends December 2020, and Scott Oakleberry, whose terms will end December of 2020.
Mayor, I move approval.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Taylor. Do I have a second?
I'll second, and really appreciate their willingness to serve. If anyone out there is willing to serve, there's lots of opportunities with various committees, and I think it's great to be able to have people in our community step up. And this is one committee that, from my formal assignment last year, really enjoyed working with them. It's a high-power committee. I think it's a great example of coming together and people really using collaboration for the betterment of the city. So thanks, Mayor.
Okay.
One question, if I may. At the top of this, it says request for council action, City of American Fork. I'm curious, Terry Lynn, does this become an official city document, this one page?
It's kept permanently, but it's not.
Okay. So it's a form more than anything. There's just one spot that's confusing to me under the paragraph background. The second line, it reads, tonight there are 2 appointments to the park tax. And I see the word 2 and I see 3 names. And I just can't comprehend that. So just that OCD again. That's why I was wondering if it's official.
I made a little slash in there and I put 3 as well. But so yes, you're right. There are 3.
And there is a difference, and I wondered if we need to distinguish that, or if just the way it's worded is okay, or whatever.
I think that, legal, I think we're comfortable with the names. We stated who was being reappointed, who were new members, correct? Okay. I stated that, yeah. So I have a motion by Councilman Taylor and a second by Councilman Shelton. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Voting is unanimous, and they have kind of started getting their feet wet a little bit. Yeah. So, all right. Action item number 3 is review and action on a reimbursement agreement with the Corporation of the Presiding Bishopric for the Lakeside 1 LDS Chapel. Scott, do you want to just kind of give us a rundown on this? It's in our packet, but I think it's good to have a summary.
Certainly, Mayor. Thank you. This item is basically a reimbursement agreement for some items of infrastructure that the LDS Church installed when they built the stake center in this area. And some of the pieces of infrastructure that they installed, we, the city, asked them to increase the size, capacity of water line, roads, and so forth, beyond what they would normally need to do for their development. And so this is an agreement to reimburse them for the differences between what they would have had to have provided and what we asked them to provide.
I love this. I can call it a program. We've done it numerous times with different developers, but it allows us to save a lot of money as they're already in the area. We don't have to pay for someone else to come in and mobilization costs and everything of that nature. So really applaud staff continuing that trend. Didn't mean to cut you off, Casey, or Stacy, if I did. Okay, good. I'll move to approve the reimbursement agreement for the Corporation of the Presiding Bishopric.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Member Shelton. Do I have a second?
Second.
seconded by Council Member Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to ditto, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to ditto what Councilmember Shelton said. I agree. When I saw that, I was like, that's brilliant. It's a good idea. Let them dig the hole and we'll put it in.
So this agreement is being dated the 22nd of January. According to that document that I'm reading, it says 2017. Are we talking 2018 would be my question. And I'm going to get in trouble for this, but they've already done the work. Did we just have a handshake before they did the work? Or do we contract? Do we sign anything formal beforehand? Because if we didn't, this is a good chance to stiff them on this. And I'm not saying we should. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm just curious about the entire procedure, just briefly.
Certainly, and I'm sorry, I should have stayed up here, Councilman, but this is an agreement that is a reimbursement after the fact. The work has been done. It's one of many procedures I'm working on because ideally we really should have these agreements in place, approved by the council before the work is done. That was not done in this case, and it's in the future it will be. It's something we're working on many things to get that process fixed.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. All right. Do I have a motion on this? Yeah. Okay, I have a motion and a second, so I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Council Member Christiansen,
Aye.
Council Member Shelton,
Aye.
Council Member Barnes,
Aye.
Council Member Carroll,
Aye.
Council Member Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4 is a review and action on a performance in lieu agreement in lieu agreement with Clayton Properties Group, INC DBA Oakwood Homes regarding actual constructions in lieu of providing an improvement construction guarantee associated with the Hanson Ranch Phase 3. This is something that we have, again, done typically in the past. It's not out of ordinary. It's somewhat of a pattern. That is there any questions that you have for Scott, maybe not only on the process, but even something specific to this job, this project?
My question would be basically the same thing I just asked. As I read this, there's nothing specifying what they will do for in lieu of. Do we typically just have a handshake and agree what the developer will do up front, or do we have it under contract? How does that work? I didn't see anything on that, so sorry.
Sure. Just Councilman Barnes, just in general, it's the agreement constitutes many documents as they move through the development process, one of which is the construction plans that are signed and approved by us. And so that is a part of it as we review and approve those construction plans, detailing what they're supposed to build in terms of water, sewer, roads, et cetera, that we review that, and that is a part of this agreement. So there are many documents that really are part of the whole development process. This is just one of the steps that they want to be able to do as the code allows them to be able to get the improvements built without the bonding or other financial agreement, a financial guarantee, by basically giving us the opportunity to withhold the filing of their final plat and selling of lots.
Okay. So really what I'm trying to do is just make sure both parties understand what needs to be done. So at the end, we don't get into a spitting contest of you said this, he said that, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's all part of the documents and contract, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have a question. This is just from my knowledge. Is there any risk to the city for doing it this way versus doing it with a retainer?
I'll venture my opinion. I don't see that there's any risk because, again, the developer is not allowed to, the final plat is not filed, which means that the lots that they are wanting to sell to potential buyers don't even exist yet. So they're not able to sell a lot that doesn't exist. They're not able to pull a building permit from us. So there are plenty of safeguards, if you will, for lack of a better term, that enable the city to make sure that the improvements agreed upon are put in before those lots are released.
I think the risk that you run, just as I see it, is being that the development may, in my mind, have financial issues or may struggle, and so they may get foreclosed upon. So those improvements may have been put in halfway, but anyone that picks up that lot that wants to further that investment, so you may have some improvements that are put in for a little bit of time that might look halfway done, but again, anyone that picks that investment up has to finish those. So, and that's probably the same thing with the improvement guarantee as well. You run that risk. While it's bonded, you may not have all the money to be able to prove it going forward.
And we have had in this city some of those. I know the mayor was talking about some of them in past years, and he actually had an individual in the city go around to look at some of those projects that were not finished, but somehow got through the cracks. I think you know which ones and who I'm talking about.
Could be a couple.
There aren't a whole lot of them, but there were some.
If I can just add, just for clarification's sake, so doing this performance in lieu of the bonding is not really a choice that the city has. It's permitted by state code. So what this agreement is really just the city putting into place a contract to make sure that we're following state code and the developers agreeing to follow state code. But it's not really, if the developer comes to us wanting to do performance in lieu, we don't really have the choice to say no. All we can do is govern the terms of the contract.
So when you say permitted by state law, permitted at whose option? The contractors?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So the city, if the contractor wants to do it, the city has to accept it
Correct.
once it's all formalized and everything else. Okay.
Exactly.
So is the durability, in addition to this, you have some cash for that you hold for a period of time to make sure it lasts?
Correct. And the durability is separate. You know, I was joking with Adam beforehand, though, that if there comes a question I wasn't 100% sure on, I should just say, these aren't the droids you're looking for. But maybe David, you can help me out, because, again, I'm still learning some of the processes. But I'm sure we have a mechanism still for the durability.
Yeah, there will be. Once the improvements are installed, the city will have the opportunity to go inspect those and make sure that they meet our specifications and standards. And at that point, we'll sign off, and then they can record that plat. But they still will have to post a durability to make sure that they last for the 1 year time frame
Warranty period.
that's required.
I'll add to that briefly. The durability is actually one of the requirements. The durability portion has to be paid as part of this agreement as well. So that's actually received in advance.
Has to be a payment. I appreciate my backup singers.
Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve the performance in lieu agreement with Clayton Properties Group 2, Inc., DBA Oakwood Homes for Hanson Ranch Phase 3, and authorize the mayor to execute the documents.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Carroll. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Shelton. Or Tater. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Tater.
Aye.
All right, now action item number 3. I'd like to consider a motion and an action to enter into a closed session to discuss the character or professional competence of an individual and to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Tater. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Shelton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Mayor,
opposed?
that should be a roll call vote. if
Okay.
that's okay.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. I was trying to cut some corners. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll, Councilmember Tater. for the record as well. So we will adjourn into a closed session downstairs in this room, and then we will, as we are finished, we will open back into open session, and we will close an open session from that room. And so we'd ask our legal to attend along with our city administrator, and we'll go from there. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.